morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of our Secret Path Week events. As we gather today, we are reminded that throughout Canada, we are situated on Indigenous lands, both ceded treaty land and unceded land. This land is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a country, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work. So today I acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral people on whose territory I am broadcasting from today. My name is Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. I run an organization called Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We connect classrooms across North America with scientists, adventurers, explorers, and conservationists for live virtual events and virtual field trips. If you've never visited before, exploringbytheseat.com, you can find 50 or more events each month for your classroom to join in live with us. So this is our 3rd year collaborating with the Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund to bring Indigenous leaders, artists, and scientists live to classrooms across Canada. We have an incredible week on the go with 20 live events, including musical performances, language lessons, storytelling, and so much more. The Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund is part of musician Gord Downie's legacy and embodies his commitment and that of both the Downie and Wenjack families to build cultural understanding and create a path towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. So the goal of the Downie Wenjack Fund is to continue the conversation that began with Chanie Wenjack's residential school story and to support the reconciliation process through awareness, education, and action. So many of your classrooms out there are already doing something, acts towards reconciliation as legacy schools. If you haven't heard of the Legacy School program, it's a free national initiative to engage, empower, and connect students and educators to further reconciliation through awareness, education, and action. There have been hundreds of reconciliations across Canada from classrooms, from legacy schools, and we hope your classrooms will visit the Downie Wenjack site, check out the program, register. You get a great kit for your classroom to get going on reconciliation in your school, your community, families. So do take a moment and check that out. Okay, our first speaker to kick things off today, we've got Stan Kapashesit joining us. He is the Director of Economic Development for the Moose Cree First Nation. He's also a member of this remote island community in Northern Ontario. Since beginning his tenure, Stan has researched and engaged the community to find ways to help assist in the high cost of living in this areas. So one of the challenges is getting freight and items to the island community, and he's exploring solutions through technology. So I'm going to bring Stan in live with us now. Hey, Stan, how you doing today?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have you kicking off day 4. We've got 6 events back to back to back to back today. They're just going to go right till 3 o'clock.
Nice.
But we're excited to get to know you a little bit better and learn about some of the work you're doing up north.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, and certainly appreciate that introduction. I'm not sure if you have my slideshow up yet.
Yeah, it's up now for you, Stan.
Great. Perfect. So like Joe mentioned, my name is Stan, and I'm just going to talk today a bit about the history of how we met Gord and got to know him through different elements. And, as the song says, let's get friendship right. Gord certainly was a part of that and certainly lived that kind of life. And I just wanted to start the slide deck off with a few pictures of him and I with my son. And we've often seen him up there when he got the chance to come and visit us. So it was always a special moment when we got to see him and got to talk to him. Certainly we miss him, and certainly we are encouraged by this leadership that he provided to give us an opportunity to share our stories and get this path that we're on in the right way. So we certainly appreciate that, and I just wanted to start off with a picture of Gord and I and my son. So I'll go through the slide deck, and I do have time for questions and answers at the end of it. So if you have a question and would like to jot it down while I'm talking, I'll certainly answer any questions that anybody has at the end, and we can go from there. So just a bit about what I'm going to talk about today. I often think about the lyrics "Ahead by a Century," and with Gord, I feel that he was ahead by a century. You know, he in the final concert of the HIP, he kind of talked about the next 150 years on making this country a great country and kind of sharing our history and culture with everybody, including us learning more about everybody, about the folks in the South and you in the North. I mean, you learning about us in the North. So he talked about 7 generations, and we talk about that in some of our teachings as well as Indigenous people, where it does take 7 generations to kind of get to a place where a clearer understanding and a clearer pathway is set forth. So certainly wanted to start off with that. And I also want to acknowledge that I'm situated on Treaty 9 territory. So I'm a proud Moose Cree First Nation member. Lived up north all my life, except for the time when I went to school down south. I also want to take the time to acknowledge our youth. So all the students in the class, thank you for, listening to us and me sharing the story. Appreciate that. I want to acknowledge the educators that are in the classrooms. Certainly, you're doing a great initiative and a great leadership by participating in events such as this. I also want to acknowledge any elders that are present either in your classrooms or virtually online. I know we have a virtual audience as well, so I want to acknowledge them. And I also want to send some special greetings, especially to my nephew Nico. He recently underwent surgery on his brain to remove a tumor. Thankfully, it went okay. Everything's looking good. So I want to say hi to him and his parents and his brother, and my parents are down in Toronto actually at Sick Kids. So they're down there. I just wanted to say hi to them. I want to say hi to my children as well that might be able to watch this either later today or when they have the time. I also want to say hi to my love, Maria, of course. Just want to do that. And I want to thank the Downie Wenjack Fund. Certainly, they've played a role in shaping these kind of sessions and bringing us all together in this kind of way, which is always good. So the staff and board for their efforts on making things like this happen. And of course, I want to thank Gord Downie. Gord Downie was a special friend of mine, and I think about him often, and especially today and this week. Today I was reminded of him through the album The Secret Path that he released all around the Wenjack family and sharing their story. So he thanked us in the notes. If you read the album notes, the linear notes, he thanks a lot of us from the north up there. So of course, Gord, we're thinking of you, and I know you're down up there looking down and seeing all the good things. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So just a bit of an overview on what I'm going to talk about, just how we met our Uncle Gord, we call him, in the HIP. I just want to share a bit about our history and culture, and I want to share the future of what we're up to up north here. Then, like I said, I have time for Q&A after I'm done, so we'll get started. So this next slide, as you can see, is pictures of Gord again, and the band, the HIP. So this was a special time and a memory for us. So me and Gord are standing there, and he's holding the hockey card. The song 50 Mission Cap, I guess, talks about Bill Borilko scoring a goal where the Leafs win the cup. So this is the card that he kind of references in the song. So I had the band sign the card for me. So that's a special keepsake that I have of them. The middle picture is the band, in their element, doing a sound check during this concert they played in the gymnasium in Fort Albany First Nation. And just to mention how we got involved in the concert, we were doing the sound and lighting. I also do have sound and lighting equipment that I run up there. So it was quite the shock and honor, of course, to be asked to do sound for the Tragically Hip. And of course, we said yes. It was no brainer. So we were especially humble to do that. And the guys there, all of them, Paul, Gord Sinclair, Robbie, Johnny, and of course Gord, they're all humble people, like off stage, but on stage, of course, they rocked, right? So they were awesome, and so it's a special time for us. And then the other picture with Gord, this is after the show, so we got a chance to hang out with them, and hang out with the band, and it was pretty cool. And so we called him Uncle Gord ever since, just because he's been, even though he's not our family, we kind of adopted him to be our uncle. and it's kind of common among Indigenous communities to, if they have a close connection with someone, they'll either call him uncle or auntie. So that's how we got to meet Gord in the Hip, which was amazing. This slide, I just kind of want to show you some images from back home, like from where we're from. The top left picture is, sunset. The middle part of the picture is the island, Moose Factory. And the mainland is Moosonee. So this is where we live. This is where I live. And it's coincidentally, Moose Factory and Kingston share the same establishment date of 1673. So Moose Factory was originally a Hudson's Bay Company trading post when it was first, I guess, established as a settlement. It's the oldest English-speaking settlement in Ontario, along with Kingston. So they share the same, I guess, birth dates in that respect. So it's kind of cool and kind of unique that Kingston, where the Hip are from, and Moose Factory share that same, starting date. So that's always been cool and fascinating to me that we had a connection already. The other images with the teepees and the northern lights, of course, the northern lights up here, we call them Wawate in Cree, are quite spectacular, especially during the winter time. And yeah, they come like right down to you. So, at the right time, at the right moment, it's quite special to see one of these actions happening. So the other items, of course, is Gord. He's situated on the left bottom one. This is him in a boat in Onakwana. The picture was taken by our friend Pam Tozer, and Gordon and the Tozers there had a special connection, and they always welcome Gord and his family. And so I just wanted to share that picture because Gord, often found sanctuary up here in the north, and kind of just got away from it all, and just wanted to be himself and learn more about Cree people, I guess, which was always welcoming, and we always shared with him in the best way that we could. And the other picture to the right of him is a picture of our lodge, our Washoe tourism lodge that Moose Cree First Nation owns. It's situated out in James Bay, a place called Hannah Bay. And this is part of our initiatives too, to grow our economy and grow our tourism elements and share a bit about our history and culture while out on the land. So there's things to learn there as well. So I just wanted to share a little bit about our history and culture of Moosonee and Moose Factory. And the next slide I wanted to share is a bit about our future. So the True North, Strong and Free, of course, is taken from our national anthem. And for us up north, we want to build upon initiatives that kind of help the cost of living. Like Joe mentioned in the introduction, a lot of our projects are kind of geared towards transportation, high cost of food, even bringing special events closer to home. So the first picture you see with the drone there, the drones project we've been working on for a few years now, and what we're trying to do is we're looking at ways to bring freight and cargo from the mainland in Moosonee to Moose Factory, because we're on an island and there's a couple times of the year where we are quite isolated. The river's freezing and it's coming up soon, where we can't take a boat across and things like that. But there's helicopters and such, but those come with a cost. So we're looking at drones to provide a year-round solution of freight shipping and getting our cargo over. I know that drone there, the Sparrow, it looks like a small one, and it is. It carries 40 pounds of freight and cargo. But the largest drone that we're looking at now can carry 400 pounds, and it's like a little helicopter, really, that is piloted by a pilot on the ground. So these are the things that we're trying to look at and trying to identify for our future. The pic with the hockey players on the right is the Toronto Maple Leafs alumni team. So we've hosted the Toronto Maple Leafs alumni team a couple of times, and they've become great friends and allies to our programming and to our kids. So they play the game here with our little Tykes team up in the arena in Moose Factory, and that was quite special. So those kind of events we're trying to bring, bigger, I guess, celebrity type names closer to home, where people can see them, right at our arena. So these are the things that we're kind of working on as well. And then the bottom one with the tanks, those are fish tanks. So we're working on an aquaculture project. And aquaculture is growing fish and growing fruits and vegetables year round. So the project we've been working on is about 6,000 square feet, and we're looking to grow 12,000 kilograms of fish each year with 60,000 heads of leafy greens. So that could be, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, strawberries, and that kind of thing. So that kind of thing is going to be a year-round initiative, and it's kind of scaled to feed our community with more nutritious and locally grown food, as we're being more mindful of food sovereignty and that kind of thing. So these are some of the projects we've been working on for our future. And Joe, if I can turn it over to you for the next little bit. We have some videos that we'd like to share, if that's okay. Can you see the screen, Joe? Or
there's a big conversation going on in this country about our first people, about our land. And so I will talk tonight about that dialogue in the hope that there are lessons from the bigger land to learn. But I don't only want to talk about lessons from the bigger land that is Canada. I'm here in one of the most special places on our planet to talk about lessons from the land here in Mushkegowuk. Mushkegowuk is the homeland of the Cree.
All right. So as you can see, that's where the hip played at the Great Moon Gathering in Fort Albany First Nation. It was a special time, of course, for everybody up there. There was about, I'd say, 500 of us packed into a school gymnasium for that concert. And it was certainly an amazing experience for everybody. So the next video I wanted to share kind of introduces our drone project. When we first got it started back in 2017, I think is when we first had the Drone Delivery Canada folks come up and do a couple of test flights across. So this next video kind of shares a bit of that story and how it all came to be. So like I mentioned, we're looking at this kind of technology to help lower the cost of freight and cargo shipping to our community. So if Joe, if you can pull that video up. Thanks.
We're in Moosonee, Ontario, which is just on the tip of James Bay. Very remote parts of Canada, very cold in the month of November, extreme weather conditions. Moosonee is our starting point in terms of developing our platform for remote communities. We're approximately 2.5 hours by air north of Toronto. We're very excited to be here in Moosonee and Moose Factory. We've been doing testing for our drone delivery platform. Yesterday, we flew from Moosonee to Moose Factory, which was approximately 1.5 nautical miles of distance. When we were about to start flying, the weather changed considerably, big gusts of winds, very cold temperatures. The goal really was just to integrate into the community, show them our technology, show them how the technology can help them. I'm proud to say that we successfully achieved our mission.
First Nations people in this part of the country, and probably for other First Nations as well, is that the process of maintaining identity, of maintaining your culture, is an evolution. It's always ongoing. And as far as the question as it relates to being innovative in technology, being aware of the technology, absolutely, of course. You know, that we as a people, that we're not static, we're not stuck in 1905 or, 1900 or whatever. We're an evolving nation as well, like any other nation on this planet. That we have hopes, dreams, aspirations, and as humanity evolves into what area it discovers, absolutely, we're going to be there.
Well, living, like I said, in the north certainly has its challenges for sure. I mean, the high cost of living is something that's people have kind of gotten used to, but we pay, up to 2 times as much compared to our neighbors in the south. Really, when we start opening their eyes and opening up discussion, looking at alternate options and new innovative technologies like drone, is certainly something that has to be considered.
Today, these communities are utilizing a variety of different means of transport, whether they're utilizing boats, water taxis, or they're using helicopters. These are the means that they're utilizing to move products back and forth. But what we're finding is it is very slow, it is very expensive to do so, and very cumbersome at best. With our technology, it ultimately is just in time, it's immediate, and it's very, very cost effective. When we went to Moose Factory and we met the community members in this environment, in this climate, in the challenges of just getting there logistically, we really realized firsthand how this technology can really improve their lives.
Because we're on an island, we have an added level of isolation, I guess you could say. Ice is starting to form and the boats are still out there, and I don't really particularly like this time of year, but access is going to be an issue. It's always an issue twice a year for us because we're island people. So access and being able to say, hey, bring this to me right now. I got a delivery at Thunder Air, bring it to me. I need it now. Anything medical, then yeah, absolutely. That's why we've agreed to the partnership and agreed to the testing of the drone delivery system. So we're open to it, right? We want to see if it's going to work and help us.
And really, when you look at this environment and you look at our technology, there's a solution here where we can improve people's lives immediately utilizing drones. It's just-in-time access, whether the river is frozen or not. Our testing has achieved very positive results, and we see a positive impact to the society.
Being utilized in different capacities, like health services or an emergency services, those type of things. You know, heaven forbid that an emergency situation comes up where they need a defibrillator or medicine or something that needs to be delivered, you know, right away. And sometimes it takes a few hours to get a helicopter to kind of dispatched, right? So if the drone can play a part in that, in ensuring the fast, efficient delivery of those kind of emergency materials or services, then it saves a life. I mean, then that right there kind of pays for itself, right? Because the value of saving somebody's life is ultimate, right?
Drone Delivery Canada. Innovation is taking flight.
All right. Thanks for that, Joe, for sharing those videos. Certainly that gives you an insight to the use of drones in our area. And like I mentioned, we're looking at transporting all types of freight, all types of material, including health and safety items. So these are kind of the things that we're working on for the future. And that's something important to us as we, want to continue to evolve and continue to reach for those new technologies and provide meaningful opportunities for our youth and for our people. Is something that we're always working towards and striving towards. So that pretty much concludes my presentation and talk today, but I'm certainly open to any questions that you may have. If Joe wants to kind of moderate that, and we can do that.
All right. Well, Stan, thank you so much for giving us that glimpse into your northern community. Sharing, those special moments with Gord and the HIP. And of course, it's really neat to see the way technology can be used to help in these far north communities and get life-saving supplies in many cases to people much quicker.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's meet some of our classrooms. If you're tuning in live via YouTube, use that side chat, send us in a question or two. We'll work some of those in. But for now, we're going to dive into some live groups. So we're going to head to Newmarket, Ontario first. Looks like we've got some high schoolers hanging out with us. With Miss Alekia. Let's bring her in here. Hey, Miss Alekia, how are we doing?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Stan, thank you so much for sharing your story and your sustainability ideas for your community with us. We're just starting that unit, so our students had some questions about some of the challenges and opportunities that are faced up in the area there, including how the climate impacts daily life there. And I know in the video somebody was talking about 2 times a year access is an issue. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, during I guess the fall season, which is right now into the winter, there's a period where the ice starts to form on the river and kind of creates a bit of a challenge for things to get across in terms of logistics. So the river typically takes about 6 to 8 weeks to freeze where it's safe to cross. And then we have an ice road. Ice roads kind of connect us in the north as well, even further north to our remote communities along the coast. So there's that element, but we found that through climate change, we recently did a climate change adaptation study a couple of years ago. We kind of undertook that just to be mindful and considerate and kind of educate ourselves and our community on what the effects of climate change have in our seasons. And we've noticed that winters typically could be a little bit shorter, a little bit warmer, but mind you, it still can get down to like -40, -50 below up here. But it's certainly changing in terms of the weather, in terms of the climate change. And then in the springtime, we're finding that the melt and the spring melt is happening a little bit more sooner. This past spring, it started melting at the end of March and into early April, where we were kind of used to still using the river and using the frozen lakes and muskeg and such for traditional spring goose harvesting. It kind of melted away quickly. And this kind of impacted on how the geese flew as well. So we're certainly noticing the change in climate. We're certainly mindful of that. And but yeah, it's something unique. And if anybody would like to see our climate change adaptation report about our area, I'd be happy to share that as part of education about our area.
Yeah, if you send me that link, Stan, I can share it with the classrooms who joined us today so they can dig a little bit deeper.
Sure.
All right, we're going to jump to another classroom now, Mrs. Huggs' class. They're grade 7 students, and they're joining us from Guelph, Ontario. So let's pop them in here with us. Hey, grade 7s, how we doing?
Hi.
Hello.
Does anyone have a question for Stan or for Joe? Rom, go ahead.
Why not invest in hovercraft? We can go on ice, water, and land.
Could you hear that?
Is that about hovercrafts?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good question. And actually, just to let you know, we did look into hovercrafts as well. I know a company in Moosonee did do a test of a hovercraft, and they kind of went kind of both ways. They had issues getting onto the river with the hovercraft because the ice, we're on a tidal formation, I guess, where the water rises and lifts and rises and goes out twice a day, every day. So when that happens, the water level will go up. It'll start to freeze, and then it'll go down. It'll go out. So the tide will go out, and then that'll create like a crust of ice along the shore. So depending on the level of the tide, the hovercraft that was trying to be used would have issues if it was trying to come up the riverbank or the landing, I guess, if the ice kind of thing or ice chunk was too big on the shore. So they had those kind of issues and technicalities, I guess. But other than that, yeah, they did look into hovercrafts. So that's a good question. But it never went really much further than that after those kind of testing.
All right. Well, we can definitely see that the students are thinking about, different ways to get things across the river at those tough times.
Yep.
So Miss Green's class is joining us from Toronto. They're a grade 4-5 class, and I believe they're virtual. So they their teacher sent me a question here in the chat. And they're wondering, can you tell us just a little bit more about the aquaculture pools? And is it difficult to grow fruits and vegetables? Can you grow lots or just some in that area?
Yeah, well, the project is still kind of evolving. So I guess the system is not set up yet. So on paper, it looks like it'll work, but for answering the question, the science behind aquaculture is where we grow the fish, right? So we grow the fish, we grow them up to 1 kilogram in size, which is about pan size, where you can fry them and cook them the way you like them. And then I guess the byproducts or the waste products from the fish are used as fertilizer. So that gets kind of filtered through the water systems and used as fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, to provide nutrients to the plant growth. So there is science definitely behind it all. And once we get our demonstration unit up, we're currently right now constructing a demonstration unit at our Cree Cultural Interpretive Center. So once we have that live and up and going, we're planning to share it either through YouTube or virtually, and we would invite any class or any participants that are interested in learning and seeing it firsthand, how that kind of technology works. So it's a great question, and the intent is really to have more control of our food sovereignty. So food sovereignty is having accessibility to fresh and locally grown food products, and having more kind of control on how we can get those kind of products, because most of the time our product, especially in the north, travels quite far. It'll get many, many miles of distance from where it starts from to where we get it to at our table. So we're trying to be mindful of all that, especially when we talk about greenhouse gases and transporting goods and stuff like that, and having more fresh, locally grown items and fruits and vegetables locally is the goal. So that's the intent behind our aquaculture project. But certainly I'll invite anybody who's interested to come up and see that firsthand.
All right, very cool. So joining us via YouTube is Miss Wells' 6th grade class in Newfoundland, and they're curious, how long does it take to cross the river by boat, and how long does it take to cross the river with the drone?
So by boat, usually if you're in a water taxi, it'll take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the tide. So if the tide is low, we have to go around the long route, around the sandbar and that kind of thing. But if the tide is high, there's a more, shortcut that you can take by boat. With the drone, doesn't take that long. A few minutes, once it's in the air, it's like a straight beeline across to point A to point B. So when they were testing, as you've seen in the video, there was certain landing spots that the drone were designated and programmed to land at. So that's where they would just basically, as soon as they lift off, it's like a straight beeline across. So anywhere between 2 to 3 minutes was the flight time. So those are kind of the logistics I guess we're looking at for drones.
All right, great question. So heading to London, Ontario now, some grade 7 and 8s with Mr. Matthews. Let's pop them in there. Hey, London, how we doing?
We're doing well. Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Thanks for sharing, Stan. Just 2 things for you, perhaps. I know you showed in your video just a quick picture of the prices. We pay $4.25 for milk, $2 for bread. Can you maybe give us some of the prices that you pay? And then I have just one more question after that.
Sure. So like for typical bag of milk, it's anywhere between $5 to $6 for that. and for a loaf of bread, it's about $5 a loaf of bread. So it's probably about double about what you pay. And then for even the other bulkier items, it gets more expensive, I find, just because of their weight is factored into the pricing. So those are the kind of realities that we live in the North.
That's pretty eye-opening. And our second question is, we spent a lot of time early on this year learning about the past. We learned about Cheney's story. We learned about residential school. As an educator and for my class, what can we do to more so than learn forward about maybe current issues facing our First Nations, and maybe what we can do in terms of action to put towards maybe a more positive outcome or result from what we're doing in the classroom?
Yeah, great question. Certainly, I'm a firsthand, I guess. Well, my father went to residential school, and so I'm the first generation that didn't do that or didn't go through that process. So, attending events like this, participating in any activities that acknowledge Indigenous and First Nations culture is certainly a place to look into. I know sometimes I find even some of my friends who are non-Indigenous, want to do something and want to get involved, and they don't know how. So what I always try to encourage is, find something that's common. And common could be like the love of music or the love of art or that kind of thing. So if you want to look into Indigenous artists, whether they're a musician or poetry or a book writer, there's several First Nation people that are making moves, I guess, in that kind of element. So, like my friend Wabagijig Rice is a novelist. He's got some good books out there right now. And a friend of ours, William Prince, he's a Cree from out west in Manitoba. He's got some good music to listen to. So I always try to encourage people to find something common, which is a good place to start. So, if you're supporting them through purchasing books or music, great. And then you start liking them, even better. So those are the things I kind of try to encourage. Just try to find something common that you might share.
All right. That's great, Stan. Great advice. You can also visit, to find more artists, you can also visit the Downie Wenjack site. And the Artist Ambassador is a great list, from poets to musicians, artists. So there's a great list that can get you started there as well. Mrs. Kameli's group, they are joining us in Newmarket, some high schoolers, I believe. How are we doing today, Mrs. Kameli?
We're good, thank you. Can you hear me?
We got you, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So we have a question here, more about your career path, I guess. They're wondering kind of what led you to where you are today, and sort of, I guess, why you were drawn to it, and then sort of like the logistics of the steps you had to take to get there.
Okay. Good question. Being a youth in growing up in a remote community, we were always kind of growing up around hospitality and seeing visitors come in. Of course, we had the Polar Bear Express train that ran during the summer when I was young, and we would often, as children, we would greet the train and kind of meet visitors as they arrived, and we would ask them if they needed help to get to a boat taxi. So I used to do that with my cousins and my friends, and we would, meet them at the train station and kind of walk with them down to the boat taxis. And during that walk, we would always have questions and always got involved and interacted with them. And we called it hauling tourists. It was the kind of cute little thing to do back then. And once we bought the tours to the boat taxi drivers, and usually I try to bring him to my grandpa, and he would give me 50 cents or $1, and that would just go towards my junk food, I guess, for the day. So that kind of led me into like hospitality, and I went to the School of Hospitality in North Bay. I attended college there, graduated from hotel administration. And from that, it kind of got me into, business development and business thinking. And I started my career from there. I graduated back in 2000. 2002, I came back and started my career and started working initially with the hotel here at the Cree Village Eco Lodge. And then I eventually went into business development, working for the Community Futures program up here. I was a business development officer for a number of years. And then I went into employment and training. So I, started helping our people in terms of their career goals. And then it led me to more economic development, I guess, programming and initiatives for the region. I became the executive director for our Community Futures up here, Waakanagan CFDC. And from there, I kind of worked for about 7 years. And then after that, I came to work for my First Nation as the director of economic development. So, for my career goal, it was always about helping people, helping our membership kind of grow their ideas or grow themselves personally. And that's how my career path has been so far. And it's been quite the journey.
All right. That's great, Stan. Stan, I wish we could just keep going because I know there's still questions out there, but we do have to think about the next event starting soon. But Stan, if you're up for it, if any classrooms have some more questions, if they email them to me, are you okay if I forward some to you?
For sure. Yeah. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody has.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
Perfect. All right. Well, classrooms on YouTube or joining us on camera, if you do have a few more questions, feel free to send those my way and I can pass them to Stan. Thank you so much to our YouTube crew for joining us today. Thank you to all the camera classrooms. You guys were great. And Stan, thanks for joining us. Kickstarting day 4 today, taking us to your community and, bringing the hip in for us and taking us to some new technology, some new innovative ways to move things to the community.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity, and just like to thank all the classrooms as well and all the people that attended virtually. I appreciate it. Miigwech.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We're off to our next event, so hopefully we'll see you over the next couple of days.
All right.